Hello and welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers Chandigarh edition. Now today, of course, we have the news on Israel-Palestinian issue. Here, the most important, according to me, was an opinion which tells us about India's possible approach on dealing with Israel-Palestinian issue. So this is important. We get good fodder points for our GS2 mains answer writing. GS2 covers international relations. I want you to keep a note of these points. Then we also get an explainer right at the end of the newspaper, which tells us about anti-Semitism movement, Zionist movement, Balfour Declaration. So we have done this, but again, we will focus on this. So these two I'm going to focus. Besides, I think you already know we are going to cover doctors. So there was an opinion, we need more doctors. So there was this article. It tells us basically that education, medical education needs to be scaled up. But there are other aspects also. When we talk about doctor to population ratio, that is one indicator that we need more doctors. Right. So I have integrated this article with the one in the opinion section. And by the way, I have already shared this on the Telegram today morning. Okay, so this has to be prepared. I think that's it actually. These are the ones that I'm going to focus more. Now coming to the front news. So first news that we have is about Israel-Palestinian issue. And it says there is a possibility of a two-front war. We know that there is a war between Israel and Palestinians, particularly the Gaza Strip. Israel is striking the Gaza Strip and they are planning a ground offensive. So that we know. So let's look at its map of Israel. So this is Israel, this is the Gaza Strip where the Hamas are dominating. So they're striking here. But they are also striking territories in Lebanon. Lebanon is in north. Why Lebanon? Because in Lebanon there is pro-Palestinian group known as Hezbollah. Hezbollah did missile strikes with the Hamas. So Israel is retaliating. Now there is a possibility of war spreading towards Lebanon as well. Okay, so if the war expands, if it expands, in that case, we will see more inflation because the sea lanes of communication passes through this Suez Canal and, all that region will get affected. Okay, that's it on this two-front war, the possibility. Again, it is covered in the international section. Citing deepfakes, government looks at IT rules to make WhatsApp disclose source ID. So we hear about deepfakes. Now, deepfakes, you would already be aware of, hopefully. So deepfakes is basically use of artificial intelligence, which it replaces a digital avatar of a particular person we can have, or we can have the voice of another person based on machine learning and AI. So that is possible with deepfakes. Okay. Now, deepfakes is fine, but what if it is misused? If it is misused, if it is used to create some panic amongst the population that something wrong is going to happen, somebody so and so has said. So misuse is there, defaming somebody is there, right? A lot of things can happen. So there is a problem with this. And so to deal with this, the social media platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook, etc., because they are the ones where the message would be spread. So they are required to declare the source ID. That is from where the first time, where did this message originate? So when the source ID is known, it will put a restriction. It will be a disincentive for spreading deepfakes. So this source ID is nothing but a traceability provision. We know that from where did it actually start. So the social media companies are required to work on this. Now this topic is important from GS3 point of view. Now take it as a science and tech topic. And abuse of science and tech becomes internal security problem. So that again is in GS3 only. Next, we hear about Ladakh. We know that troops are deployed over there because of that China issue. So winter months, again, it's very cold. So new shelters are coming up, special fuel which can work at the freezing point temperatures, and batteries, right? So more equipments are to be provided for the troops. Okay, so now we just scroll through. Today is the birth anniversary of Baba Banda Singh Bahadur Ji. Now this for us simply means that we have to prepare a short note as well as for prelims. We should have basic idea about him. So this is an exercise that you can keep doing whenever there is an ad. This is of course an ad or a publication from the government on important personalities. Okay. Indian Navy. Indian Navy looks to introduce new ranks. They already have ranks, new ranks, especially at the junior level. So one is the officer level. So below the officer level. So they want to change it. They feel that some of the names of the ranks are not appropriate. They indignify the post. So changing it, and it carries a colonial baggage. So in this article, it basically tells us the name of some of the important posts and how their name has emerged. Not relevant. It's just that it is interesting. Right? Admiral, for example, is an equivalent of a general. So admiral is coming from the Arab phrase Amir al-Bashar. So that becomes admiral, right? And when the British took over this thing, name. Okay, the problematic name is petty officer, for example. Petty officer is equivalent of a subedar major from army. So petty means small, petite. That is not correct. These names their Navy wants to change. By the way, if you want to know equivalents, you can easily get it from, let's say, SSB Crack or any other website, right? Army we are more familiar with. So Navy is equivalent and Air Force. Petty officer is below the officer level. So it is mentioned here. Next, Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, our Chief Justice of India, has raised certain concerns about the Indian judiciary. He says that it has been 74 years since our independence. We see these feudal practices in the judiciary which are not appropriate. We need to change that. So that is what the head of the judiciary in the country has remarked. So you would be seeing two wings over here. So blue and the yellow ones. So basically the remarks of his and telling that some wrongful practices, feudal practices that are there. For example, when the judge of a high court is entering into a district, so the district judge is supposed to be at the border of that district and receive him. Right. Now, so then some of the feudal practices, high court judge is speaking. So at that time, the district judge, the judges from the subordinate courts are supposed to stand up. Right. So these are some practices which are not appropriate, and I think not mentioned over here, but the practice of saying lordship, etc. So that again reflects lordship itself as associated with feudalism. Okay. So this creates an environment which is not appropriate, right? And it makes somebody feel inferior. Some of the judges who from the district courts emerge into the high court, they feel that inferiority complex still goes into that, even when they are at the higher courts. Okay. And last one is that the district judiciary can again be broken up into district court, and subordinate courts. So the term subordinate means junior in hierarchy. So that is again not right. We need to change it. In fact, Himachal Pradesh High Court has called for this change, that these should be collectively called as district courts. Right. And by the way, the term subordinate court is mentioned in the article itself, Article 230, Constitution itself, Article 235 of the Constitution. Okay. And he says one more thing, appellate courts, that is when from court, when the appeal goes to the higher court, he says that it's not like appellate court is really superior. The court, both courts work in their own jurisdiction. The lower courts work, they are independent. It is only when the matter goes as an appeal can they look into the conduct of the lower court. Otherwise, they do not. Okay, flash floods again in news with the Sikkim thing, glacial outburst flood that has took place, GLOF. Okay, name of two athletes, Parul Chaudhary and Avinash Bhale. So Parul Chaudhary won gold in this Asian Games for 5,000-meter race, 5 kilometer race, and Avinash Sable, he won this 3,000-meter steeple chase. Now coming to the opinion section. So this was the article that I was saying is, to me, it's important from mains point of view. A path in the crisis. On Middle East, Delhi, that is India, must stay with abiding principles, remain clear-eyed on interest. It should focus on interest and also focus on convergence of principles and interests. Okay. So very quickly, India has interests with Israel as well as the Arabs. We talk Arabs, we say Arabs because the Palestinians are Arabs, right? So if Israel offensive goes against Palestine, so it affects the Arab sentiments. So India has to be mindful as to how do they take their support? What position do they take? India has to balance that approach. Okay, already Israel, we have this defense interest, technology interest, plus Israel also reflects the West in the Middle East. While when we talk about Arabs, it is about the Indian diaspora, it is about energy security. Saudi provides us crude, right? Plus connectivity initiatives. So that may get jeopardized if, be a concern that they may get jeopardized if we go purely with the Israeli position. Now, in that regard, how should India deal with it? India has already worked on delinking Israel and the Palestinian relationship. That Israel, we have separate interests, but we are also abide by the Palestinian issue. And we support the two-state solution, that is the Israel in the Palestinian region, that is Israel and Palestine. We support the two nations. Now, besides this, India's approach. Okay. So India is saying that violence is not justified. They're not really saying Israel is right or Palestinians are right. They're saying violence is not justified. And saying this, they are mindful of not going into the root cause of the violence. Root cause of the violence is establishment of the Jews and creation of Israel in Arab area. So they are not going into the notion of resolving root cause, that we need to address this issue or two-state solution. Nothing of that sort they are saying. Why? Because they are only talking about violence is not justified. Now this is both neutral, because Hamas violence on Israel or Israel's violence on Gaza. Violence is not justified. Simple. They're not going into the root cause, because if they go into the root cause, we see that Pakistan has continuously supported terrorism, focusing on the root cause. They say the Kashmir issue is responsible. So India has learned it the hard way that don't talk about the root cause, just focus that violence and terrorism is not correct. Then for Israel, they should say that we should respect the humanitarian law and go by the principle of or doctrine of proportionality. So humanitarian law, that is, yes, you are right, Israel is right in targeting the Hamas, but at the same time, it should not target the civilian population. It should be mindful of that. At the same time, proportionality, that is how much damage the Hamas has done in accordance that military offensive should be. It should not be disproportionately more. So that is the doctrine of proportionality. You should not go into that complete eradication of Gaza altogether. That would be disproportionate. Then coming to the Israelis held hostage by the Hamas. Now Hamas, we know, they are in Palestine and Palestine is Arab. So India should leverage its good relations with Arab and help with the negotiations for release of the hostages from the Hamas. And most importantly, which this article was actually centered upon, was the ruling parties, BJP, Congress, should not get into this petty politics. Both are getting into the politics of it. Right? So, very simple expression is India must be insulate itself from, insulate the issue of Israel-Palestinian issue from domestic politics. That's all. Don't get into Congress, BJP while writing your answer. So that is India's approach. And by the way, when India deals with Israel-Palestine issue, it comes under India's extended neighborhood policy. Next, I want to focus more on this first. We need more doctors. Okay. So when we talk about we needing more doctors, obviously we have to tell facts as to what is the recommended amount of doctors that are required. So WHO prescribes that we should have one doctor for 1,000 of population. Fine. So one doctor for every 1,000 people. Now, in India's case, as of 2017, India said that we have exceeded that. We are at 1.34 of 1,000 population. So I'm quoting from here actually. Right. So quoting this. So, but there is a catch. These are not doctors associated with modern medicine, that is MBBS. These include Ayush doctors as well. And there are a lot of limitations on Ayush doctors on prescribing medicines. So in reality, it was only 0.77 out of 1,000. It is believed that by 2024, which happens to be the next year, we will reach this mark of one doctor per 1,000 population. Now, it is important to note that this is basic. This is the least that is expected. We should have much more than this. Right? That's basic, like below poverty line. If you're above, slightly above that, doesn't mean you become rich, right? You're still poor. So if we look at the other countries, it is much, much more. Look at the number of doctors for Australia, 3.374, about 3.5 doctors for 1,000, or 3.5 times more than India. China is 1.852. France, Germany 4, right? So only, I think, of all these countries, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, we're comparable to Pakistan actually, which is not a good indicator. So this is low. This is the bare basic they are saying. We should be much more than this to meet the healthcare address concerns. In fact, if we look at the COVID times, we were woefully short of doctors. Okay, so this is low. Even this number is low. Besides, let's say we even achieve this ratio of 1:1,000 or 2:1,000 also. Would that still be adequate? No, because there is a problem of maldistribution. 1:1,000 does not mean that we have uniform distribution of doctors. There are more doctors in the urban areas. There is a bias towards urban areas as compared to rural areas. Of course, they want to work over there. Then here also we can say between the urban also tier 1 cities, the preference of the doctors is more towards tier 1 as compared to tier 2, tier 3 cities. And talking about, again, maldistribution, we can also look at north-south point of view also, that south has producing more doctors as compared to the north. So the ratio is obviously better over here, south. So there is a problem of maldistribution. Actually, this article simply says maldistribution and inefficiencies. Right, so that is there. Okay, so that is number one problem is maldistribution. So regional distribution. And then we can also say that distribution of doctors in primary, secondary, and tertiary care. If we look at India's primary healthcare setup, doctors are not there only, or woefully less, or not there, or not coming, or getting into the private practices. More biases towards, doctors, all the doctors want super specialty, etc. They want to work at the secondary and tertiary care. Your friends also, if they get into MBBS, the bias is towards getting into AIIMS. Okay. So that is a problem. Then, funding of public health care. This is also very less. According to the latest estimate, it is at 1.8% of the GDP. According to some estimates, it is 2% of the GDP also. It is, to be honest, to be frank, it is more than what it used to be, 1.2%. Now, the national health policy says this should be 2.5 to 3% of the GDP. Now, again, this is bare basic. If we look at the sub-Saharan countries, I mean, I'm talking the countries which are very disadvantaged. There also the health budget is, public healthcare budget is 7%, 8% of the GDP. US 14%. So in India's case, it is very, very less. Right? We need to augment this. If we augment this, plus if we address the distribution bias, then things will improve. Okay. Then we are having less number of doctors. Now, this is from this article. So we are having less number of doctors coming up. So because of regulatory issues, there are obviously we want competent doctors, good doctors coming up. We don't want compromise on the quality of doctors. End of the day, they are responsible for our well-being. So the medical colleges, which are actually hospitals, so they have to go by the curriculum, which is competency-based curriculum. So there is a restriction. So on one bed, when the training is going on, so one bed, 15 doctors can only be there. There is a limit to this. So you cannot expand beyond a certain level. So regulatory-based issues like curriculum competency-based curriculum is there. Then to promote equity, the second issue, to promote equity, that is to have doctors across the country, the government says that these hospitals should be evenly distributed. So it says that there should be 100 seats per 10 lakh of population. There is a restriction that if there is a medical college, so in the 15-kilometer radius, there should be no college coming up. So that the next medical college is 15 kilometers apart. So idea is that there is distribution of hospitals evenly. But because of this, it creates an issue of expansion and creation of more hospital seats. And of course, private education also suffers. There are restrictions on private education, right? Curriculum, and which should be there actually. So that is also creating an issue. Now coming to the measures, what can the government do? So we have done the problem. We have first started with the trend. Then we talked about the issues. And lastly, what can be done? From the facts only we will go. So we need to double the health budget as stated in the National Health Policy 2017. We should go beyond that. Now, we have doctors, Ayush doctors are there. We should use their skills. We should have a bridge course so that Ayush doctors can give modern medicines, allopathic medicines. Then we have nurses and auxiliary staff. If we have less doctors in the primary healthcare, but we do have nurses, they have some training in medical field, they have some expertise. So their skills can be augmented so that they can give medicines or basic consultation advice they can give, or at least refer it to a senior doctor. That capacity addition can be done. In fact, in other countries like New Zealand, US, etc., if suppose there is a heart problem, even the police is trained in giving CPR. Okay. Then restrictions on transfer. I've seen this. I stay close to Chandigarh region. So doctors prefer to be posted in Chandigarh or Panchkula, the nearest city. That preference, that bias is there. Even if they're posted in that other place, they give some referral and want to come over here. So there are more doctors in this area as compared to other parts of. So there should be a restriction. There should be a strict implementation of this policy, which does not happen. Okay. Lastly, we said there is a problem with competency-based curriculum. US also has the same competency-based curriculum. So what they have done is they have brought in a system of integrated interprofessional education, so that doctors plus other professions, nursing and pharmacists, they are together trained. So it opens up spaces for more posts for doctors. Okay, so this was about the doctors helping the teacher. This is it starts by telling us that Bihar government has brought in a survey to assess the mental health care issues of the teachers. Right, so that is point number one. But this actually expands the scope of the article, expands. It tells us about the issues faced by the public school teachers, which is important. Why? Because it can be integrated with a theme of quality of education coming down in a country. There is a theme, there are these UN studies which says that we have been able to achieve universalization of education, universal enrollment, but quality of education at the same time has come down. And who imparts education? The teacher. So if we address the issues of the teacher, if we provide them good working conditions, in that case, the educational outcomes will improve. So that's how it can be used. Now, what are the issues faced by the teachers? First, I'll go beyond this also. First is they are not given normal salaries. They are employed as casual laborers and contractual laborers. Right? So that is one number of issue. Second is they are burdened with number of non-teaching assignments. In Punjab itself, there is a news that came that they were asked to ferry political workers. Then census duties, etc. Also, we have seen teachers doing that. So burdening them with non-teaching assignments is not appropriate. It is not good. It is having an impact on their well-being and peace of mind. And it is very important that we ensure that the well-being of teachers are mentioned, especially at the public healthcare, public schooling, government schools, because government schools are the ones that are addressing the backward sections of the society. And we need to ensure that they work in the right environment. Not just the children, adults in the classroom also need right environment. Who are the adults? The teachers. Okay. Two articles are there. Both are important, but today I'm not covering them. I've done that, maybe I'll do it another time. So one is this glacial lake, right? So what steps need to be taken, which I mentioned that adequate monitoring should be done, vulnerability assessment should be done, right? So those steps are there. Keeping water at the center. It's talking about climate smart agriculture. He keeps writing about this theme. So minimizing climate risk in agriculture will require rewarding farmers to switch from irrigation heavy crops like paddy in the arid areas of Punjab to less water intensive crops like millet, pulses and oilseeds. Agriculture accounts for 4/5 of the water demand, and in certain areas like Punjab, etc., where there is a scarcity, this is done by flooding of the fields by extracting the groundwater. So the water table is also coming down. So we need to move towards sustainable farming practices. So what can be done? MSP on this can be increased. Assured procurement should be done. MSP government keeps increasing, but assured procurement is not there. So that can be done. Then promotion of these crops, other incentives, food processing, so that can be encouraged. Metering of water, right? So these are certain steps that the government can take. Farm extension services through Krishi Vigyan Kendras, so that can also be done. Okay, international news. Fighting erupts in north. So north is Lebanon, which is where Hezbollah is operating. Blinken, US Secretary of State, and equivalent of Defense Minister, extends his Middle East tour, return to Israel today. Okay. Putin, Russia to visit, Russian president to visit and meet Xi Jinping to deepen the no limits partnership. So ever since this Ukraine war of 2013, 2014, Russia was, put under the sanctions by the US. This undermined their economic capability. Now here, please visualize, it's Russia is in the north, in the map of Asia. On the south is China, and then comes India. So Russia was under this tremendous pressure, sanctions, etc. So at this time, Russia and China had a deal that Russia will provide China with energy, oil, and natural gas, and China will provide them with currency and things to buy whatever things they need, which they were dependent on US and other countries. So this helped sustain their economy. And ever since this unconditional support of China, the relationship has deepened. So no limits partnership. And both Russia is anti-West, China is also anti-West, or at least anti-US. Economy news: willful defaults, that is, people who have the ability to pay but do not pay. So those are willful defaulters, like Vijay Mallya, etc. So this is likely to spike, this increase, and it will rise to 3.53 lakh crore. So obviously this is not good for the economy. Yes, we can look at what is the government doing with reference to the issue of willful defaulters. Next, center likely to top up Narega with additional 30,000, 40,000 crores in financial year 2024. Fine, they're going to increase. Now, what does this indicate? Government is increasing the budget for people who want jobs in unskilled labor work. This is an indication of rural distress. This is an indication of farm sector being affected, right? Lack of economic prospects, and therefore the government is doing it. This is the last case resort for anybody to do. Now, previously we also had the issues of corruption in Narega. I always feel, I have not come across, but I always feel that the topic of Narega is very, very important assessment type of question, which we must prepare. No angel tax scrutiny for DPIT recognized startups. Okay. Angel tax is a tax imposed on startups. They get this angel from funding from angel investors. So angel tax is, according to the recent budget, it is at 30%. Now, it says that no angel tax scrutiny for DPIT. Okay. So let me tell you, so very simply, these startups, they get funding, no problem. But when, funding from an investor, no problem. But if the funding is beyond the fair value, let's say a valuation is done and it is well beyond the accepted fair value, whichever way the valuation is done, it is much beyond this. And if money is coming to the startup, so this will be seen as a profit. So when the money is much, much beyond, so this will be seen as a profit by the companies, by the tax authorities, CBDT. And in that case, 30% tax would be imposed. Okay, last one. So how Jews migrated to Palestine and how Israel was born and why Palestine was chosen. Okay. So according to the Hebrew Bible, so just focus here, written everything here. Hebrew Bible, it is the holy book of the Jews. Abraham's grandson. Abraham is believed to be the link between the God and the humans. Abraham was settled by God onto the land. I was doing a lot more actually reading. That is the reason why I actually got late in today's analysis, and there's a lot more to do. But for simplicity's sake, Abraham's, right. So yeah, so Abraham. So Abraham's grandson was Jacob. Jacob was, is believed that Jacob was named Israel by God. That's all we want to focus. Right, so Israel term is coming from God itself. God called Jacob as Israel. Now, Abraham settled in Canaan, this region, Canaan, which happens to be the modern day Israel. Right, so Israel homeland, I think that thing emerges now from where it is coming. Now, in the pre-World War era, earlier, obviously, the Jews must have stayed over there. The Judaism would have been practiced. King Solomon was there 3,000 years ago, who built the Temple Mount. It's believed so. Okay. In the pre-World War era, everything got displaced. We had the Ottoman Empire. The Roman Empire falls, and then comes the Ottoman Empire. It establishes the Islamic State. Right? Okay, Ottoman Empire. They ruled for a long period of time. Okay, so that's I just wanted to say that this region came under the Muslim influence. Now, coming to the 1890s. In 1890s, in Europe and in fact many parts of the world, Jews used to live, and they were very prosperous. They were a trading community. Now, particularly in Europe, there was a sentiment against the Jews. So, sentiments against the Jews is known as anti-Semitism. So, at first it was seen with Russia. Imperial Russia saw pogrom targeting Jews in 1880s. So, Imperial Russia. Pogrom means targeted killing at a large scale of a particular community, in this case, Jews. So this was in 1880s, not by Germans first. It started with the Russians. Then in France, there was this Dreyfus affair. Dreyfus affair. So this happened in 1890s, where a Jewish soldier was killed because it was suspected that the Jew soldier of the French, transferred secret information to the Jews of the Germans. And he was persecuted, wrong, and a rumor was created and he was killed for this. So all this created a feeling of discontent amongst the Jews, and they felt that they need to have their own homeland where they are secure. So anti-Semitism in Europe in 1880s, 1890s, that starts, and Zionism emerges. Zionism is nothing but it is the position that the Jews should have their homeland. Right? Okay. So that was there. Jews actually started, they identified various places. They identified, obviously, Palestine where Palestine was there. This was actually Canaan. So Jews started migrating and started living in this region, the Canaan region, with the Ottomans. Jews earlier also they used to live. Now more people were migrating. Okay. Now when the World War happened, when the first World War happened, so at this time the Britishers needed the support of the Jewish community. So their Foreign Secretary Balfour, he gave a declaration that there will be a creation of a Jewish homeland. Where? In the Palestinian region. So a Jewish homeland would be created. So this was in 1917. 1918, the First World War ends. Okay, so that commitment was made by the British. And Jews were anyways, they had started settling over there. Jews were previously also there as minorities, but now more Jews were coming. They were the well-off people. They were buying land and staying over, owning land, and they were staying over there. The Arabs were getting frustrated, especially with the new Jews, because they did not mix. They were the land-owning communities. They hired the Arab workers to work on their fields. So there was a discontent with the Jews already, and now they see more and more of these Jews are coming. So Arabs were not happy with this. This led to a lot of violence, especially in the 1930s, 1938. Okay. So this happened. There is no mention of Hitler, but we know that in the Second World War, Hitler had committed Holocaust against the Jews. Now, later there was a Peel Commission. So after Balfour Declaration, now how should the Jews be settled? So there was a Peel Commission which proposed for a two-state solution, that within this Arab land. By the way, after the World War first, this Ottoman territory came under part of the Ottoman territory where Israel is there. This came under the control of the British. So they came up with this Peel Commission, and they said that there will be partition of this territory, and there will be settlements of Arabs as well as the Jews. And it was in favor of the Palestinian Arab population. Right, so this was done. Peel Commission, Arabs did not go, they did not like this. So then British, by 1947, they surrendered. So the matter went to the United Nations General Assembly. So UNGA 194 resolution or UN 194 resolution it was passed, and they said there will be a two-state solution, partition of the Palestinian region into two parts, one for Israel, one for the Jews and one for the Palestinians. So Israel and Gaza were created. So Israel declared its independence on May 14, 1948. GI tag for cashews in Goa. So that is done. Now, very quickly, it's proposed by the Office of General Controller of Patents, right, and which comes under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And largely, if you look at the international, so WTO TRIPS deals with the issue of GI. So that's